Flash loan attacks, yeah, is another.
Flash loan attack. What's a flash loan attack?
Your data is valuable on the internet. It can be collected, analyzed, sold, or stolen. Take the first step towards online privacy. Get NordVPN.
Please watch out for comments like this from scammers pretending to be me or other crypto YouTubers asking you to contact them via WhatsApp or DM. Also find me on bittube.video and also on Library, 2 censorship-resistant platforms. Come over and follow my work there.
Yeah, so I mean, without getting too complicated into it, you understand how flash loans, you can basically take a loan and then repay the loan in the same block?
Okay, I didn't know that.
Avi, I think, is the ones who have offered a lot of stuff with this. And so, yeah, it's maybe a little bit complicated and technical, so I won't get into it too much. But basically, one of the types of loans you can do, because normally you have this over-collateralized loan, right? And so you deposit, I don't know, say $100,000 and you borrow, let's say $70,000 or something, right? It's like, okay, that's great. Well, here, if you borrow the money and then you repay the money all within one block, it's almost like no transaction took place. And that can facilitate all kinds of fancy things, okay? Which is really, it's got some really interesting uses for people within decentralized finance. But allowing people to do that can facilitate really complex hacks, essentially, where you end up doing a flash loan to borrow money here, then you go over here and do something with it, and you go over there and do something with that, and then you come back here and you repay it. And all of that happened, but in the result, because of how it worked, you end up stealing a bunch of money, right? That's more or less what happens. And some people will argue that it's not, they'll say, well, it's not really a scam. You're just kind of like taking advantage of the system. That's a whole other conversation. But there have been some really sophisticated ones. I think it is there's a YouTube channel called The Defiant, and he does a great job of breaking down some of the details. So if somebody wants a really technical understanding, there'll be like 16 steps in some of these things in how they're illustrated. Yeah, so beyond the complexity that we want to discuss here, but the important thing to note is just that there are risks like this, and the community, I guess, is discovering this, as well as I got to go through discovering this, and so sometimes you don't know. There's a migration function, or various different other things that can happen within a smart contract that are not good. And so what we started doing is we had our team basically auditing smart contracts. We had our CFO going through and looking at the tokenomics, looking at some of these underlying pieces in order to try and figure out how do we avoid losing money ourselves, right? And in the process, we started saying, well, hang on, why don't we just open source this information? Why don't we, put it out to the community? We provide copies of our audits. Why don't we, as we're going through looking at the top pools, why don't we publish lists of this? And we started doing that, building, a pretty amazing community. And then we said, okay, let's build tools for ourselves. Then let's put tools out to the community. And so this is what has led to Defiyield. And now we have, some really sophisticated technology that we're launching. And yeah, that's really cool.
Okay. Now the audits that you did, and that I think you still do you do them independently of the project, or do the projects
totally independently? Yeah. And I think we're probably one of the only independent groups who does this. Like, there's a lot of paid audits, and I think there's kind of an inherent bias there, right? Maybe Certic or somebody does a great quality audit, but they are being paid typically by the project in order to do the audit. Now, on top of that, smart contract audits are super expensive. It's a long wait until you can get a good auditor in there. It's like $30,000 to do some of these things. Some of these firms are booked up till September, November even. And so for a normal person, this is not accessible. We fortunately have a team of auditors. We work really hard to build, as high a standard as we possibly can. We're probably on par with some of the top in the industry in terms of the audits that we do. And that's partially because we're doing them for us, right? We're going and trying to save. And so we do it without being paid. It's not something like that. It's just something we do for ourselves and something we do for the community. And then because of that, we built the largest database, actually I think the only public database of all the smart contract audits that we can find out there. So you can actually go on our website and you can look and see, hey, almost like CoinGecko, which projects have audits, how did those audits come through, et cetera. And not all audits are equal. So some people will say to me, oh, hey, listen, this project was audited. It's like, well, not all audits are equal. So be aware of that. Some auditing firms are definitely more credible than others. And there's some really cool technology that's, again, an evolving space that is one of the interesting things here.
Okay, all right. So you do these audits. So you set up these audits, making it available to people generally and stuff. And then what happened next? How did this whole venture evolve?
Yeah, so I mean, again, like I think it's as we build tools for the community, we're increasingly launching the public. So like one of the super cool things we're doing now is a project called Defiyield Safe, and this is we've built as we've gone through and done this the largest bug library in the industry. So basically, looking at all the things that can possibly go wrong in these smart contracts, and then building automation to create essentially a virus scan for smart contracts. And so this will allow anyone to be able to see without us having to go and put resources on auditing these smart contracts. The software will do it and identify what are the potential vulnerabilities in any project so that you can know, hey, listen, this is kind of risky. This one here is safer, et cetera. And so, yeah, again, the big mission is how do we build tools that make it accessible to people so a lot more people can participate? And how do we build tools to make it safe to people so we reduce the amount of money that's lost and kind of build a gold standard for people where they can say, okay, great, I can look at this and I finally have some transparency. Because it's one of the interesting things in the world. I don't know if you feel this way, but I really noticed that there's a problem with this ballooning complexity, right? Where we have all this cool stuff, but it's super complex. It's like, I don't know how it was for you back in the day, but you used to be able to fix your car. Try fixing your car today.
My bicycle. I used to be able to fix bicycles when I was a kid. Now I look at mine, I'm like, am I ever going to fix a disc brake? I've no bloody idea.
There you go. Exactly. Right. So the same concept applies here, right? It's like the average person, they can't code in Solidity, right? Let alone you start throwing different other languages at them. They're not going to read a smart contract. They're not going to understand this. So if we can provide automation in order to take that away from people so they don't have to worry, and they're protected and they're safe, and it won't be 100% at first, but we're going to continually get it better. And hey, listen, if you eliminate most of the risks, then that goes a long ways. And hopefully then it disincentivizes people from creating these frauds, et cetera, and cleans up the space a lot, which would be really, really cool.
Okay. All right. Very good. Well, we're getting more into the evolution of Defiyield App and stuff. So what does it offer now? If somebody were to go onto it, is it an application they download? Is it a website? How does it all work?
You can go to defiyield.app, and what you'll experience is initially a dashboard, which is super cool. Basically, you can connect your MetaMask or Trust Wallet or whatever else to the platform. We built the technology. I think we're the only ones who have the underlying framework to allow us to have cross-chain support. So we'll be able to support Solana and all sorts of non-EVM compatible chains as well as EVM compatible chains. So people are probably familiar with, Ethereum, obviously. Binance Smart Chain, something like Avalanche is EVM compatible. There's lots that are EVM compatible, and stuff like Solana is not. And so, okay, great, that's a good thing. So on this dashboard, you can see all of your assets, and you can see the history of your portfolio. You can see what it is that your values have changed. You can see what tokens you have. You can see the transactions of when you bought and sold. And this is super useful. I have a tax background and I have a channel related to that subject. And so it's really hard for people to keep track of things with tax, right? And so it's like, okay, well, this simplifies that for you and makes it really easy. So that's super cool. Then we've got, like I said, various different tools. So, you can add and remove liquidity from pools. You can go and we're going to have swapping built in there. We've got, like I said, the Defiyield Safe thing, which will actually scan it's like a virus scan for your wallet. It'll just go through and look at all the contracts that you've got and say, hey, listen, are there possible vulnerabilities, and notify you of that. And so same thing if you're going to get into a project, oh, look, this one's dangerous. That's super cool. And then stuff like our impermanent loss calculator, things like our database of smart contracts. Yeah, like tons of really, really cool stuff. And we've done it at like a protocol level, meaning that you can have APIs, so other platforms are going to be able to build in and can use our database, et cetera, on their sites as well, which is again hopefully really, really useful for the community.
Okay, and just check my funds because I connect my MetaMask wallet. The funds stay with me. I have my private keys. So is that always the case?
That's always the case. Yeah, we don't have any of your stuff. We're just basically. It's like when you go to Uniswap, right? Like at the end of the day, we don't have any access to it. We don't control it. It's all in your custody. We are quite happy not to hold anybody's stuff. We don't want that responsibility. And,
fair point.
Then, that's how it works. So.
Okay. And then how much does all this service cost, and how do you guys make it?
It's all free. Yeah. So you can go on and you can start using it, and there's no cost to you. As we roll out some of the other features and we're launching a token, we're going to have some functionality that higher level features are enabled, or there's some other things that you can do because you have our token. And so that's going to be helpful for you. But yeah, everything's free. You can go in and start using it today. Costs you nothing. And so I really recommend it. Like, why wouldn't you? It's your experience is going to be better.
I want to get. So you don't have the private keys. How am I going to get rug pulled by you then, right? And if you're free as well, what are you talking about?
Rug pull you. So that's good. We don't want anything in that. Hopefully, we're going to prevent you from getting rug pulled or hacked or something else like that. So
okay, but you could move later on as you add more and more services. There may be charges for those services. I mean, at some point.
I don't think there will be an actual charge.
Sorry, Michael. Unless you've made so much money from yield farming.
Yeah, I mean, so I think again, at some point in time, we'll have staking that will take place with our token, right? So that will be a big thing for us. It's just similar to a lot of projects, right? You can go and look at something like, I don't know, Thorchain, right? You can go and you can stake their token, and that has benefits for people. But the actual Asgard DEX that they have built doesn't have. Well, I guess there are actually fees generated there, but anyway.
Okay, now how would I know? Like which projects to go and yield farm with or something? And do you have guides? Do you have suggestions? Does the community post votes or something?
Yeah. So that's a great question. I would recommend people do mainly 2/3 things. One is we've published a bunch of guides on, like for example, a guide on Phantom and, yield farming on Phantom. How does this work? So that's really cool. You can just go and read that and that will be helpful for you as a resource. The second thing is I highly, highly recommend that anyone who's involved in crypto participate in the community. There's just so many good Telegram channels out there. And when it comes to yield farming, ours is arguably probably widely considered to be the best. And so, it's a great community of about 6,000 people. And we're talking about real, active, engaged, some of the best yield farmers in the world, some of the OGs, et cetera, are parts of our community. And so people are always sharing information, hear about what's the latest thing, what are the risks, et cetera. And so I would highly recommend people go and join that. That's excellent. And then the third is you can go and follow our Twitter, and we post regularly every week updates on what are the highest performing yield liquidity pools. What are the stablecoin pools? What are they on Binance Smart Chain, et cetera, et cetera. Because that gives you some direction as to where to go. And obviously, it's always changing. So, if I was to tell you something today, it wouldn't necessarily be true by the time this video is up. So, I just say join the community, get involved there, follow the Twitter, and that'll be an ongoing resource for you.
Okay, and all the ones that you do post on your Twitter, they're all ones that you've audited, because you got to match.
It depends. Yeah, not necessarily. That's something that you have to again go and check one by one. We kind of just provide resources for people, and then always in crypto, do your own research. So I can't tell you that anything in specific is going to be safe or not, but you get a lot of warnings and information from the community. And then our tools, that's more where you're going to see, okay, hey, listen, this is something that's been audited. This one's been audited by good people. This is the standards that it passed, and so on and so forth.
Okay. All right. So I could use that, and I'll have all the links in the description below. Okay. So talk me through it. What could I actually do? Let's say I've got 1 ETH.
Yep.
Right. What could I do to yield farm?
Okay, so let's use just some hypothetical examples, all right? So maybe it's worth understanding, what is yield farming in advance, right? I think that it's kind of interesting, at least for me, maybe it'll be interesting for your audience, of what is yield farming? What's going on here? And what this is it's based on the construction of what are called automated market makers, which is basically what allows decentralized exchanges like Uniswap to work, okay? And basically, you can think of it this way. I show up on Uniswap, and I'm like, hey, I have some ETH. I'd like to buy some DAI. All right. Well, how do I buy some DAI? Normally, you would have somebody on the other side, and you're going to have this bid ask, I'm going to swap for you, right?
Yeah.
And the reality is that's never going to match perfectly, right? If somebody's selling and somebody else is buying are not going to perfectly align. It's not a bad way to go. There's on Solana, Serum is built based on order books, as I recall. And so there's some things like that work. But things like Uniswap are based on automated market makers. And automated market makers essentially say that there was a pool of liquidity deposited. Now, a pool of liquidity is just a bunch of tokens, okay? Token pairs, actually. So somebody would say, hey, listen, I'm going to deposit ETH and DAI into this pool. And that means anytime somebody wants to buy ETH, they can basically buy it out of the pool, or anytime they want to sell ETH, they can, swap it for DAI in the pool. And the pool will get imbalanced And that imbalance causes price changes, which is going to cause arbitrage people to come in and rebalance it. There's a whole kind of like philosophy around how that works. But the important thing to note is that you'll notice when you're swapping, there'll be this liquidity pool provider fee, right? And so in other words, for depositing those tokens, the person who deposited the ETH and the DAI in this example, every time somebody swaps, they get a little piece of that fee. Mm-hmm. And normally, if you think about, on the stock market, brokerages, et cetera, they're capturing those fees. That's part of what I think is super cool with decentralized finance is instead of having all those guys get the money, normal people can get the money. Amazing, fantastic, right? And you can see how really quickly, because some people ask me like, how can you get these really high returns? How does it make any sense that you could get 30% or 100% a year or something off your money? Like, seems like a scam, right? But if you think about it, if there is a pool of relatively few assets and quite a few people swapping, if the same assets get reused over and over again, and you're getting a little fee each time, those fees can add up quite a bit, right? And so that's pretty good. So what would you do? Well, you would get your ETH and you would get your, let's just say DAI, right? But some pair, and you would deposit it into an ETH DAI liquidity pool, which would be associated with some swap. And by depositing in there, you are going to get some of the fees that come from the transactions through that platform, right? So every time somebody swaps from one to the other, you're getting some fees. And you can leave it there as long as you want or as little as you want. You can turn around and you can withdraw it out of the pool. And, that's great. Of course, the fees are not guaranteed. It's not like, hey, listen, whatever is listed as, hey, listen, here's the APY. That's like looking in the past or the present, right? It's like, okay, that's what it's paying now. But if a lot of people deposit in there, the fees are going to come down as a percentage because you can think of it, the pool is larger, the same funds don't get reused as many times, and so off you go.
Yep. Okay. And then, but where do the crazy returns come from then? Is it
the crazy returns come from two places. Okay, so the one is you get paid those fees, right? And this is why you'll find that a lot of the craziest returns, which by the way are not sustainable, like you see $1 trillion APY, you're not going to get $1 trillion APY, like just walk away. It's not going to happen, right? You're going to lose a bunch of money there. But it would come from newer pools because there's fewer people who are actually going and putting their tokens into the liquidity pool, right? So that's one factor. The second is usually there are reward tokens paid on top of that. So for putting your tokens in, not only are you getting the fees, they're saying, hey, we're also going to pay you in our token some more. Now, if that token, if it happens to be like an early time when a lot of people are coming in, the value of those tokens is going up a lot, right? And so as those tokens go up a lot in value, well, now all of a sudden you getting some of those free tokens turns out to be a lot of rewards. And we've seen actually this on some really legitimate projects. For example, Aave on Polygon lately has had some really great rewards for people who have been contributing liquidity. And so, that's like, Aave is very legit, Polygon's very legit, things like this. And yeah, it's been, you've been able to make some pretty good returns with relatively minor risk. And yeah, so that's where they come from. It's the combination of you getting these reward tokens as well as the fees that you're capturing off of the swaps.
Okay, so that's yield farming. So then I can go to your application and I would see all the information about different projects where I can do yield farming, and then I can go in deeper, extracting information that you've provided, and then make a choice about how to do it all. Okay, all right. Now I want to ask you in a moment about the token and why you're going to launch one and what that's going to do and stuff. But before we get to that, just occurred to me, how are you funded?
So up to this point in time, we've all self-funded. So, we've spent quite a lot of our own money building this up over the last time. I think we've been in a fortunate position that we had quite a lot of liquidity going into into 2019 or 2018, or it was 2020, right? And so we were fortunately able to afford that. And for us, to spend the money initially on all this stuff, because again, we were investing ourselves. That was just, part of our cost of investing. And, now we have a pretty big team. There's a lot of different people who work for us. And so that's grown quite a bit. But yeah, we've just self-funded everything at this point.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And now you are going to be launching a token.
We are indeed. Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully coming up here in the next few weeks. So that's really exciting.
All right, and what's the purpose of this token? Why would anybody want this token? Why have a token?
Yeah, so I think there's two main things. The one is what we're doing is we're putting a lot of the control out to the community. And I think there's an interesting two sides to any time you put, so there's governance functions that go along with the token. So people will be allowed to affect the direction of the protocol, which is really, really interesting, especially when you consider one of the things we've done that's super cool that other places haven't done is, I don't know how familiar you are with other governance tokens, but a lot of them are kind of fake governance. And what I mean by that is you vote, but you vote off-chain, and then somebody takes that vote and they put it on-chain, which means that, again, you have this person who you have to trust in there. It destroys this whole idea of being trusted. So ours is one of the very few that has actually got real on-chain governance, which is super, super cool, right? That's quite amazing, including, if the community wants to affect inflation rate, or they want to go and determine the direction that we develop things in, et cetera, et cetera. So, and there's, of course, they can put proposals and things like that. So that's the first thing. The second is there's going to be various functionality within the platform that we're unlocking for you by having the token and being able to stake the token. And so it's going to be more useful for people. People are going to be able to have more capabilities within the platform that I think we're going to be really excited about as we roll it out.
Right. Okay. So I can use it for purchasing services on the platform. Like it's a utility token, so I can. Like if I
wouldn't really, like it's not spent. It's not spent like gas fees, right? But by staking the token, you can unlock various functionality. That's the main idea.
Okay. And is there any aspect of it where I could just hold the token?
Totally.
You do all the yield farming for me, and then the token increases in value or something, or the rewards get dropped in. Is that going to be part of it?
So that's a great question, and we are building.
It's a good idea as well, Michael, if you haven't thought of it already.
Bravo, absolutely. So one of the things that we're building, if you go and look at our roadmap, which again you can go to Defiyield App and you can check it out, but it's yield farming optimization. And so now that's not specifically tied to this token or something like that, but this will be a really great feature for people who are interested in being able to, because right now the way it works with yield farming is you go into one pool for a while, and then the APY changes, and more people go in, so you're jumping to the next one. It's almost a full-time job to do a really, to be like a degen yield farmer or something. And so being able to go and have someone offer optimization services for you is pretty cool. So that's on our roadmap, but that's a little bit farther out.
Right. Okay. All right. Now, one thing I do want to mention is you very kindly, because people can see this, I'll have it up on the screen anyway. You've written a book.
Yes, absolutely.
I got this from Amazon, and you've treated me to this book, so thank you very much. So tell me about this book and why write a book, and why?
Yeah.
How is it connected with the project?
Yeah. So we got it's called The Wall Street Era is Over, and it is designed really to be kind of a Bible for DeFi, or an encyclopedia maybe is maybe more accurate. And it's kind of the ultimate guide for people who are interested in getting in DeFi and understanding this world. And I think, for us, a big part of our mission is to there's a lot of awareness now about cryptocurrency, about Bitcoin, there's a lot of people who have bought, et cetera, but relatively few people have moved into starting to use the DeFi ecosystem, right? And so we want to help people, and that's kind of through our tools and through our community and through our information, to come and be able to take advantage of this new wave of finance. And so I think I'd be curious to hear your feedback, but so far the feedback is fantastic. I think it's, again, and really, really, we put a lot of work into making it, a legitimately awesome book, not just something that is, I don't know, some sort of a lead magnet or something like that. It's, I don't know, how many pages is this? 177 or something like that?
Yeah, 177, like an introduction to DeFi so somebody can understand it. Where did yield farming come from?
There you go.
In 2020 with the introduction of Compound's Comp Governance Token. All right. Revenue.
I really recommend it for anyone who wants just kind of like to get in there and get a primer. This is probably the most compressed form of information that they can get. You can jump into this, you can read it relatively quickly. I think it's written to be quite accessible for a large number of people, and it will give you a really nice overview of DeFi and what's going on. If you buy it on Kindle, then we keep it updated, so you'll see constant updates as new things come out. Even like right up to the release, we were adding new sections because, again, it's a rapidly changing space. And so hopefully it's a resource that people can go back to again and again. It's a bestseller. We're selling a ton of them right now, which is awesome. And I would really encourage people to go and check it out because it's
Okay, very good, very good. Well, I'm going to have all the links in the description below, including to the Telegram group, which I'm going to join if I haven't joined it already, because I usually join them.
Perfect.
I'm covering, and people can go. I invite people to go and find out and investigate and check it out and everything. Is there anything else you want to let people know that we haven't already covered?
I think these are the main things, like I just really encourage you to go, and this is a place that, I mean, it's a space that has a lot of opportunity, and it's also evolving, and it's complex and difficult and risky, right? So, people have to, of course, do their own research. That being said, I think, you know, jumping in and just educating yourself is an amazing first step. I think the greatest ways to start by doing that is, you can read the book, you can go and join our Telegram chat, you can follow us on Twitter. These things don't cost you anything. You can end up, and then I think, go and try out the platform. See, I think once you get into it, you're going to say, wow, like for me, that was the way it was, right? I knew we were building it, and I go and I'm like, this is great. I can see all my assets here. Normally I'm sitting there trying to manually add up, like, okay, this token plus this token plus this token. And maybe you like bought some token, but you forgot to add it to your token list. And so now all of a sudden you're like, hang on, something seems wrong here. So yeah, it's a really great tool, and we're just adding more and more to it all the time. So I would recommend go and try using it, and yeah, from there it should be pretty good for you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you so much. Thank you, one, for coming on the show and talking about Defiyield App. Thank you for being so informative and sharing all the information. Thank you also for getting me all worked up and letting me interrupt you the way that I did, right? So really, really appreciate it. I've learned loads. And for those of you that are watching, if you have any comments or questions, put them below the video. Do go check it out. I'm going to be checking it out myself. And between now and when I see you next, please keep filling your pockets with yield farming profits. This is Crypto Rich and Crypto Michael signing out. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye.